All right, everybody. Hello, this is Venus Brown. I am back with another live stream of our reading of the book Handmaid, or not Handmaid's Tale, sorry about that, The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, which is a spin-off of The Handmaid's Tale. Now, we are on chapter 22. We're going to read the last two chapters of Carnarvon, and then we are going to go into the one chapter, part 9, called Thank Tank. Not Think Tank, Thank Tank. Anyway, usually I read these ahead of time before I start my live streams, just so I'm a little bit refreshed on how it goes and everything, and I read slightly smoother, I think, but I did not have time to do that because I was working on something with my husband. So, either way, let's go ahead and get this started. All right, so chapter 22. We got into the gray van and drove for a while, with Ada paying close attention to the traffic behind us. Then we threaded through a maze of side streets and pulled into a drive in front of a big old brownstone mansion. In the semicircle that might once have been a flower garden and even now had the remains of some tulips among the uncut grass and dandelions, there was a sign with a picture of a condo building. "Where is this?" I said. "Parkdale," said Ada. I'd never been to Parkdale before, but I'd heard about it. Some of the drughead kids at school thought it was cool, which was what they said about decaying urban areas that were now regentrifying. There were a couple of trendy nightclubs in it for those who wanted to lie about their age. The mansion sat on a large, scruffy lot with a couple of huge trees. Nobody had cleaned up the fallen leaves for a long time. A few stray rags of colored plastic, red and silver, shone out from the drift of mulch. Ada headed towards the house, glancing back to make sure I was following. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. I felt a little dizzy. I walked behind her over the uneven paving. It felt spongy, as if my foot could go through it at any moment. The world was no longer solid and dependable. It was porous and deceptive. Anything could disappear. At the same time, everything I looked at was very clear. It was like one of those surrealist paintings we'd studied in school the year before. Melted clocks in the desert, solid but unreal. Heavy stone steps led up to the front porch. It was framed by a stone archway with a name carved into it in the Celtic lettering you sometimes see on older buildings in Toronto. Carnarvon. Surrounded by stone, leaves, and elvish faces. They were probably meant to be mischievous, but I found them malignant. Everything seemed malignant to me right then. The porch smelled of cat piss. The door was wide and heavy, studded with black nail heads. The graffiti artists had been at work on it in the red paint, that pointy writing they do, and another more legible word that might have been barf. Despite the slummy look of the door, the lock worked with a magnetic key fob. Inside was an old maroon hall carpet and a flight of broad stairs, winding upwards with beautiful curved banisters. "It was a rooming house for a while," said Ada. "Now it's furnished apartments." "What was it at first?" I was leaning against the wall. "A summer house," said Ada. "Rich people. Let's get you upstairs. You need to lie down." "What's Carnarvon?" I was having a little trouble getting up the stairs. "A Welsh place," said Ada. "Somebody must have been homesick." She took my arm. "Come on, count the steps." Home, I thought. I was going to start sniffling again. I tried not to. We got to the top of the stairs. There was another heavy door, another fob lock. Inside was a front room with a sofa and 2 easy chairs and a coffee table and a dining table. "There's a bedroom for you," said Ada, but I had no urge to see it. I fell onto the sofa. All of a sudden, I had no strength. I didn't think I could get up. "You're shivering again," said Ada. "I'll turn down the AC." She brought a duvet from one of the bedrooms, a new one, white. Everything in the room was realer than real. There was some kind of house plant on the table, though it might have been plastic. It had rubbery, shiny leaves. The walls were covered with rose-colored paper, with a darker design of trees. There were nail holes where there must have been pictures once. These details were so vivid. They were almost shimmering, as if they were lit from behind. I closed my eyes to shut out the light. Yeah, I closed my mind. That's probably about what she needs. I imagine she's going to pass out soon, but let's find out. I must have dozed off. Let's see. Because suddenly it was evening and Ada was turning on the flat screen. I guess that was for my benefit, so I would know she'd been telling the truth. But it was brutal. The wreckage of the clothes hound. The windows shattered. The door gaping open. Scraps of fabric scattered over the sidewalk. In front of the shell of Melanie's car, crumpled like a burnt-out marshmallow. 2 police cars visible in the yellow tape they put around disaster areas. No sign of Neil or Melanie, and I was glad. I had a horror of seeing their blackened flesh, the ash of their hair, their singed bones. The remote was on an end table beside the sofa. I turned off the sound. I didn't want to hear the anchor's level voice, talking as if this event was the same as a politician getting onto a plane. When the car and the store vanished and the newsman's head bobbed into view like a joke balloon, I switched the TV off. Ada came in from the kitchen. She brought me a sandwich on a plate. Chicken salad, I said. I said I wasn't hungry. "There's an apple," she said. "Want that?" "No, thank you." "I know this is bizarre," she said, and I said nothing. She went out and came in again. "I got you some birthday cake. It's chocolate. Vanilla ice cream. Your favorites?" It was on a white plate. There was a plastic fork. How did she know what my favorites were? Melanie must have told her. They must have talked about me. The white plate was dazzling. There was a single candle stuck into the piece of cake. When I was younger, I would have made a wish. What would my wish be now? The time would move backwards. That it would be yesterday? I wonder how many people have ever wished that. "Where's the bathroom?" I asked. And she told me, and I went into it and was sick. Then I laid down on the sofa again and shivered. After a while, she brought me some ginger ale. "You need to get your blood sugar up," she said. She went out of the room, turning off the lights. It was like being home from school when you had the flu. Other people would cover you up and bring you things to drink. They would be the ones dealing with real life, so you didn't have to. It would be nice to stay like this forever. Then I would never have to think about anything again. In the distance, there were the noises of the city, traffic, sirens, a plane overhead. From the kitchen came the sound of Ada rustling around. She had a brisk, light way of moving, as if she walked on her toes. I heard the murmur of her voice talking on the phone. She was in charge. Though what she was in charge of, I couldn't guess. Nonetheless, I felt lulled and held. Behind my closed eyes, I heard the apartment door open, and then pause, and then shut. So she's going through this issue. She's tired. Of course, like she's been through an extremely stressful situation, and it doesn't matter if you've exerted no physical strength or anything, just that freaking mental drain will make you completely exhausted. And she's not hungry. And it's probably not because she doesn't need food or she's not actually hungry. It's because she doesn't feel hungry because of the whole awful situation. All right. Chapter 23. Now, and these two chapters are quite short. The next chapter, I think, is a bit longer. When I woke up again, it was morning. I didn't know what time it was. Had I slept in? Was I late for school? Then I remembered. School was done. I would never be going back there, or to anywhere else I knew. I was in one of the Carnarvon bedrooms with the white duvet covering me, still wearing the t-shirt and leggings, though I didn't have the socks or shoes on. There was a window with a roller shade pulled down. I sat up carefully. I saw some red on the pillowcase, but it was only my lipstick from yesterday's red mouth. I was no longer nauseous and dizzy, but I was fuzzy. I scratched my head all over and gave my hair a tug. Once when I had a headache, I'd been told by Melanie that pulling your hair increases the circulation to the brain. She said that's why Neil did it. I mean, I think there might be something to that, but I think why Neil was doing it was stress. But yeah. Like, what was it? I was reading something for some kind of hair care. I don't remember exactly what it was specifically, but that was one of the things they were saying to like really like scrub, use your fingertips and stuff like that. It gets the circulation going in your head. I just don't remember what it was I was looking at it for, but it was something specific. After I stood up, I felt more awake. I studied myself in the big wall mirror. I wasn't the same person as the day before, although I looked similar. I opened the door and went along the hall to the kitchen in my bare feet. Ada wasn't there. She was in the living room, sitting in one of the easy chairs with a mug of coffee. On the sofa was the man we'd passed when going in through the side door at Sanctuary. "You woke up," said Ada. Adults were in the habit of stating the obvious. "You woke up" was something Melanie might have said to me, as if it was an accomplishment, and I was disappointed to find that Ada was no exception in this way. I looked at the man, and he looked at me. He was wearing black jeans and sandals, and a gray t-shirt that said, 2 words, 1 finger, and a Blue Jays baseball cap. I wondered if he knew what his t-shirt actually meant. He must have been 50, but his hair was dark and thick, so maybe he was younger. His face was like creased leather, and he had a scar up the side of his cheek. He smiled at me, showing white teeth with a molar missing on the left. A tooth missing like that makes a person look illegal. Ada nodded her chin over at the man. "You remember Elijah from Sanctuary? Friend of Neil's. He's here to help. There's cereal in the kitchen." "Then we can talk," said Elijah. The cereal was the kind I liked. Round O's made from beans. I brought the bowl into the living room and sat down in the easy chair, and they waited for them to speak. Neither of them said anything. They glanced at each other. I ate 2 spoonfuls tentatively in case my stomach was still unsettled. In my ears, I could hear the crunching of the O's. "Which end first?" said Elijah. "The deep end," said Ada. "Okay," he said, and looked directly at me. "Yesterday was not your birthday." I was surprised. "Yes, it was," I said. "The 1st of May. I turned 16. "In reality, you're about 4 months younger," said Elijah. "How do you prove your birth date? There must have been a birth certificate, but where did Melanie keep it?" "It's on my health card, my birthday," I said. "Try again," said Ada to Elijah. He looked down at the carpet. Melanie and Neil were not your parents," he said. "Yes, they were," I said. "Why are you saying that?" I felt tears building in my eyes. There was another void opening in reality. Neil and Melanie were fading, changing shape. I realized I didn't know much about them, really, or about their past. They hadn't talked about it, and I hadn't asked. Nobody ever asks their parents much about themselves, do they? "I know this is distressing for you," said Elijah, "but it's important, so I'll say it again. Neil and Melanie were not your parents. Sorry to be so blunt, but we don't have much time." "Then who were they?" I said. I was blinking. One of the tears made its way out, and I wiped it away. "No relation," he said. "You were placed with them for safekeeping when you were a baby." "That can't be true," I said. But I was less convinced. "You should have been told earlier," said Ada. "They wanted to spare you the worry. They were going to tell you on the day they..." She trailed off, clamped her lips shut. She'd been so silent about Melanie dying, as if they hadn't been friends at all. But now I could see that she was truly upset. It made me like her even more. "A part of her job was to protect you and keep you safe," said Elijah. "I am sorry to be the messenger." On top of the new furniture smell of the room, I could smell Elijah, a sweaty, solid, practical laundry soap smell. Organic laundry soap. It was the kind Melanie had used. "Then who were they?" I whispered. "Neil and Melanie were very valued and experienced members of the... No," I said. "My other parents, my real ones. Who were they? Are they dead too?" "I'll make more coffee," said Ada. She got up and went into the kitchen. "They're still alive," said Elijah. "Or they were yesterday." I stared at him. I wondered if he was lying, but why would he have done that? If he'd wanted to make things up, he could have made up better things. "I don't believe any of this," I said. "I don't know why you're even saying it." Ada came back into the room with a mug of coffee and said, "Did anyone else want one? Help yourself, and maybe I should have some time to myself to think things over." Think what over? What was there to think? My parents had been murdered, but they weren't my real parents, and a different set of parents had appeared in their place. "What things?" I said. "I don't know enough to think anything." "What would you like to know?" said Elijah in a kind but tired voice. "How did it happen?" I said. "Where are my other mother and father?" "Do you know much about Gilead?" Elijah asked. "Of course. I watched the news. We took it in school," I said suddenly. "I went to that protest march." Right. That I wanted Gilead to evaporate and leave us all alone. Right then, I wanted Gilead to evaporate and leave us all alone. Don't we all? That's where you were born, he said. In Gilead. You're joking, I said. You were smuggled out by your mother and Mayday. They'd risked their lives. Gilead made a big fuss about it. They wanted you back. They said your so-called legal parents had the right to claim you. Mayday hid you. There were a lot of people looking for you, plus a media blitz. Like baby Nicole, I said. I wrote an essay about her at school. Elijah looked down at the floor again. Then he looked straight at me. You are baby Nicole. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's go to the live scene for a little while. All right. So yeah, that's not the end of their section. There's going to be more. That's just like where she really finds out the root of what happened, why she was with Melanie and Neil, that her parents had helped her escape from Gilead, all of that. But yeah, like talk about a fucking big just fucking bomb, like not literal bomb, but like a bomb of information just dropped on you all of a sudden. And her birthday's not real. Like, she's 4 months younger than what she thought she was. So she's got 4 more months before her 16th birthday. But that's the birthday she's always celebrated when she was old enough to know. Now, of course, the TV series is going a very different route, and Daisy is not baby Nicole on the TV series. We'll see what they're going to do with that. Like, I don't know. Like, I've gotten to where I am okay now with the fact that she is not baby Nicole, and it makes sense because of the timeline. But I am getting more and more frustrated at all the changes in the TV series. And usually that stuff doesn't bother me, but it's like, it feels like there's a lot of big changes. And plus, I think there's some things that maybe they are keeping them the way they are in the book, but they're just taking their sweet time getting to it. So it's making certain characters that in the book you feel are really fucking monstrous. Like, it makes it seem like they're trying to create this sympathetic image of them, which, like, I don't want to have sympathy for these fucking people. They're fucking awful. Anyway, I just had to get a little bit of that out because it is so fucking irritating. The lady who plays Vidala, well, I can't say the lady who plays Vidala on the TV series, like, they're making her out to be the sympathetic character, and it's just irritating me. Like, I hope that they don't completely go along with the image that they're trying to present now, because in the book, she's like an original goddamn Sons of Jacob, Gilead cultist. So yeah, I hope they continue to go that way, that maybe they're just trying to show her trying to hide that and not being open and honest about it at first. But yeah, just like, and I don't mind if they show her as a human being, because that's one of the things that I've commented on the show about several times, is that she seems to actually having like human reactions to these awful things, stuff like that. That's all fine. I would imagine that there are many, many females that grew up in Gilead or grew up under the Sons of Jacob, if it were a real thing, that once this takeover happened and everything happened the way it did, that I would imagine that a lot of them realized fairly quickly that, holy shit, this is not what I thought it was going to be. That this is not what I imagined. This is not what I fucking asked for. This is not what I believed that this was. I could imagine that there were a lot of them. And I'm not trying to justify their shit. I'm just saying that I imagine that the fucking shit that they did to the females was above and beyond what most of these females thought was actually going to happen. Still, her character in the book was clearly part of fucking Gilead before Gilead started. And so far in the TV series, they're making it look like maybe she wasn't. Like she was just another innocent bystander, like everybody else that was captured and fucking imprisoned and treated like dog shit by Gilead. But whatever. Anyway, I guess it's time to get to the next part. I haven't read this a second time. Like, it's been a long time since I read the full book, and I don't remember what all the parts are. I think this next part, part 9, Thank Tank, is another Aunt Lydia section. And like I said, it's only one chapter. But I don't remember 100% for sure. And like I said, I didn't read it again a second time before I do the live stream like I usually do. So anyway, let's go ahead and start reading this next chapter. All right. Part 9, Thank Tank, the Ardua Hall Holograph, Chapter 24. Excuse me. This afternoon I had another summons from Commander Judd, brought to me in person by a junior I. Commander Judd could have picked up the phone himself and discussed his business that way. There is an internal hotline between his office and mine, with a red telephone. But like me, he can't be sure who else might be listening. In addition, I believe he enjoys our little tete-a-tetes for reasons that are complex and perverse. He thinks of me as his handiwork. I am the embodiment of his will. I trust you are well, Aunt Lydia, he said as I sat down across from him. Flourishing, praise be, and you? I myself am in good health, but I fear my wife is ailing. It weighs upon my soul. I was not surprised. The last time I saw her, Judd's current wife was looking shop-worn. That is sad news, I said. What seems to be the malady? It's not clear, he said. It never is. An affliction of the inner organs. Would you like someone at our calm and balm clinic to consult? Perhaps not just yet, he said. Most likely it is minor, or perhaps even imaginary, as so many of these female complaints prove to be. There was a pause while we regarded each other. Soon, I feared, he would again be a widower and in the market of another child bride. So it's just it's disgusting and telling that he's complaining about how this is probably minor, like many of these other complaints that women have, yet he's gone through multiple wives that have died. Like, seriously, you're going to make it off like this is probably minor when you've had multiple wives dying. Like, I know you're just trying to keep the heat off of yourself, but be real. If you've had that situation, there should be nothing minor about that. And playing it off like, oh, women's complaints just tend to be imaginary. Just so fucking infuriating. Oh my God, this guy. And I don't buy for a second that the guy that they're presenting on the show is an innocent or nice guy or anything. He comes across to me kind of like that guy in The Handmaid's Tale, at the very end of Handmaid's Tale, that was courting Serena. Like, he looks all prim and proper and everything, and like maybe he has good intentions, but underneath there's something fucking seriously wrong with him. And I think even that character from the beginning, a lot of us could kind of like feel that there was something underneath that was just wrong. And then as time goes by, we started seeing more and more disturbing shit that was telling us, yeah, this polished guy that looks all moral and ethical is actually a fucking evil piece of shit. But hopefully that's the way they're going on this. Just some of the way they're presenting him does make me nervous that they might actually trying to be presenting him as some kind of innocent, sympathetic kind of character when he shouldn't be. Like, they should not do that with his character. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. And I think it gaslights all the people that have read this book. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue reading. Where did I? Okay. Where did I leave off? I thought I had it, but yeah, we had the whole thing. Okay, I think it was down here probably. Whatever I can do. I might have finished, but I don't think so. Whatever I can do to help, I said. Thank you, Aunt Lydia. You understand me so well, he said, smiling. But that isn't the reason I asked you here. We have taken a position on the death of the Pearl girl we lost in Canada. What in fact transpired? I already knew the answer, but had no intention of sharing it. The official Canadian account of the matter is suicide, he said. I am devastated to hear this, I replied. Aunt Adriana was one of the most faithful and efficient. I placed much trust in her. She was exceptionally courageous. Our own vision is that the Canadians are covering up, and the depraved Mayday terrorists enabled by Canada's lax toleration of their illegal presence killed Aunt Adriana. Though between you and me, we are baffled. Who can tell? It may even have been one of those random drug-related killings so prevalent in that decadent society. Aunt Sally was just around the corner purchasing some eggs when she returned and discovered the tragedy. She wisely decided that a swift return to Gilead was her best option. Very wisely, I said. Upon her sudden return, a shaken Aunt Sally had come straight to me. Then she described how Adriana had met her end. She attacked me out of nowhere just before we were leaving for the consulate. I don't know why. She leapt on me and tried to choke me, and I fought back. It was self-defense, she sobbed. A momentary psychotic break, I'd said. The strain of being in a strange and debilitating environment such as Canada can have that effect. You did the right thing. She had no choice. I see no reason for anyone else to know about this. Do you? Oh, thank you, Aunt Lydia. I'm so sorry it happened. Pray for Adriana's soul. Then put it out of your mind, I'd said. Do you have anything else to tell me? Well, you asked us to be on the lookout for baby Nicole. The couple running the clothes hound had a daughter who would be about the right age. That is an interesting speculation, I'd said. You intended to send a report via the consulate? instead of waiting to speak directly with me upon return? See, Aunt Lydia wants to have all that fucking information and filter it out from the higher ups, because that way she's getting it firsthand and she can try to put a fucking cap on some of it if she can, and let it out to the people that she thinks should have the information if she can't. Well, I thought you should know immediately, Aunt Adriana said. It would be premature. She was strongly against it. We had words about it. I insisted that it was important. Aunt Sally had said defensively. Indeed, I'd said, it was, but risky. Such a report might well have started an unfounded rumor with dire consequences. We have had so many false alarms, and everyone in the consulate is potentially an eye. The eyes can be so blunt. They lack finesse. There is always a reason for my instructions, my orders. It is not for the Pearl Girls to take unauthorized initiatives. Oh, I didn't think, but still, Aunt Adriana shouldn't have. Lise said, soonest mended. I know you meant well, I'd told her soothingly. Aunt Sally had started to cry. I really did. Hell was paved with good intentions, I'd been tempted to say, but refrained. Where is the girl in question now? I'd asked. She must have gone somewhere after her parents were removed from the scene. I don't know. Maybe they should have blown up the clothes hound maybe they shouldn't have blown up the clothes hound so soon. Then we would have been able to. I concur. I did advise against hastiness. Unfortunately, the agent run by the eyes in Canada are young and enthusiastic, and they do admire explosions. But how were they to know? I'd paused, fixed her with my with my best penetrating gaze. And you have not communicated your suspicions about this potential baby Nicole to anyone else? No, only to you, Aunt Lydia, and to Aunt Adriana before she. Let's keep this to ourselves, shall we? I'd said. There needs to be a trial. Now, I think you need some rest and recuperation. I'll arrange a stay for you at our lovely Marjorie Kemp retreat house in Walden. You'll be a different woman soon. The car will take you there in half an hour, and if Canada agitates about the unfortunate condo occurrence, if they wish to interview you, or even charge you with some crime, we'll simply say you have disappeared. I did not wish Aunt Sally dead. I simply wished her incoherent, and so it has been. The Marjorie Kemp retreat house has a discreet staff. More tearful thanks from Aunt Sally. Don't thank me, I'd said. It is I who should be thanking you. So a retreat house that is very discreet, that is going to make Sally just not so coherent. Lovely, lovely. Aunt Adriana did not give her life in vain, Commander Judd was saying. Your Pearl Girls set us on a profitable course of action. We have made yet other discoveries. My heart contracted. I am happy that my girls were of use. As always, thank you for your initiative. Since our operation involving the used clothing store indicated by your Pearl Girls, we've become certain of the means by which information has been exchanged in recent years between Mayday and their unknown contact here in Gilead. And what is that means? Via the burglary, via the special operation, we recovered a microdot camera. We've been doing tests with it. Microdot, I asked. What is that? An old technology that has fallen into disuse, but that is still perfectly viable. Documents are photographed with a miniature camera that reduces them to microscopic size. And then they are printed on minute plastic dots, which can be applied to almost any surface and read by the recipient with a custom viewer small enough to be concealed in. For instance, a pen. Astonishing, I exclaimed. Not for nothing do we at Ardua Hall say, pen is envy? He laughed. Indeed, he said, we pen-wielders must take care to avoid reproach. But it is intelligent of Mayday to have resorted to this method. Not many people today would be aware of it. As they say, if you aren't looking, you don't see. Ingenious, I said. It's only one end of the string, the Mayday end, as I've mentioned. There's a Gilead end. Those who are receiving the microdots here and reciprocating with messages of their own. We have still not identified that individual or individuals. Yay! We don't want you to. Ever. I've asked my colleagues at Ardua Hall to keep their eyes and ears open, I said. And who better placed to do that than the aunts, he said. You have access to any house you choose to enter, and with your finer women's intuition, you hear things we dull men are too deaf to register. We'll outfox Mayday yet, I said, clenching my fist, thrusting out my jaw. I like your spirit, Aunt Lydia, he said. We make a great team. The truth shall prevail, I said. I was quivering with what I hoped would pass as righteous indignation. Under his eye, he replied. After this, my reader, I was in need of a restorative. I made my way to the Chaflet Cafe for a cup of hot milk, and then I came here to the Hildegard Library to continue my journey with you. Think of me as a guide. Think of yourself as a wanderer in a dark wood. It's about to get darker. On the last page where we met, I'd brought you as far as the stadium, and there I will resume. As time crept by, things fell into a pattern. Sleep at night if you could, endure the days, hug the weepers, though I have to say the weeping became tedious. So did the howling. There was an attempt at music on the first evenings. A couple of the more optimistic and energetic women styled themselves sing-song leaders and attempted versions of We Shall Overcome and similar archaic chestnuts recalled from vanished summer camp experiences. There were problems remembering the words, but at least it added variety. No guards put a stop to these efforts. However, by day 3, the perkiness was fading, and few were joining in. And there were mutterings. Quiet, please. For God's sake, shut up. So, the Girl Scout leaders, after a few hurt protests, I was only trying to help, ceased and desisted. I was not one of the singers. Who would have guessed? Why waste your energy? My mood was not melodious. It was rather one of a rat in a maze. Was there a way out? What was the way? Why was I here? Was it a test? What were they trying to find out? Some women had nightmares, as you'd assume. They would groan and thrash about during them, or sit bolt upright with modified shouts. I'm not criticizing. I had nightmares myself. Shall I describe one for you? No, I will not. I'm fully aware of how easily one can become fatigued by other people's nightmares, having heard a number of recitals of these by now. When push comes to shove, only one's own nightmares are any interest or significance. See, this is one of the things, like, so many of the things that Aunt Lydia says in this just sound just so wrong. Like, even though she is supposed to be on the right side of taking things down now, whereas she wasn't before, she just sounds so narcissistic and rough around the edge. And I can be rough around the edges myself, but this is just like, ugh, like just like one of those grating kind of people that, I mean, I think you can see why she was so effective as a horrific aunt for the handmaids. Because she has this personality that's just so ugh. Anyway. In the mornings, wake up was perpetrated by a siren. Those whose watches had not been taken away. Watch removal had been spotty. Reported that this happened at 6 a.m. Bread and water for breakfast. How superlatively good that bread tasted. Some wolfed and guzzled, but I made my portion last as long as possible. Chewing and swallowing distracts from abstract mental wheel spinning. Also, it passes the time. Then, lineups for the foul toilets, and good luck to you if yours was clogged, since no one would come to unclog it. My theory? The guards went around at night stuffing various materials down the toilets as a further aggravation. Some of the more tidy-minded tried to clean up the washrooms, but once they saw how hopeless it was, they gave up, just like they did with the music. Gave up. Giving up was the new normal, and I have to say it was catching. Did I say there was no toilet paper? What then? Use your hand. Attempt to clean your sullied fingers under the dribble of water that sometimes came out of the taps and sometimes did not. I'm sure they arranged that on purpose also, to raise us up and hurl us down at random intervals. I could picture the glee on the face of whatever kitten torturing cretin was assigned this task as he flipped the power switch on the water flow system back and forth. We had been told not to drink the water from those taps, but some unwisely did. Retching and diarrhea followed to contribute to the general joy. There were no paper towels. There were no towels of any kind. We wiped our hands on our skirts, whether those hands had been washed or not. I am sorry to dwell so much on the facilities, but you would be amazed at how important such things become. Basics that you've taken for granted, that you've barely thought about until they're removed from you. During my daydreams, and we all daydreamed, as in forced stasis with no events produces daydreams, and the brain must busy itself with something. I frequently pictured a beautiful, clean, white toilet. Oh, and a sink to go with it, with an ample flow of pure, clean water. Naturally, we began to stink. In addition to the ordeal by toilet, we'd been sleeping in our business attire with no change of underwear. Some of us were past menopause, but others were not. So the smell of clotting blood was added to the sweat and tears and shit and puke. To breathe was to be nauseated. They were reducing us to animals, to penned up animals, to our animal nature. They were rubbing our noses in the nature. We were to consider ourselves subhuman. So it seems like she did a really good job of using a bunch of these tactics later on to fucking get her handmaids to do whatever the fuck she wanted. Just like, it's disturbing, really. It really is disturbing. You have to be a certain kind of person, go through a certain kind of thing to come up with some of the shit that they do. I mean, I guess you could imagine the stuff in your head without ever going through it, but no, I think Aunt Lydia is a certain kind of person that is willing to do this shit and doesn't have much of a problem with it. And she justifies it by fucking minimizing shit that people go through and insulting stuff that people find joyful and amusing. Honestly, that's how I feel about it. Anyway, the rest of each day would unfurl like a toxic flower, petal by petal, agonizingly slow. We were sometimes handcuffed again, though sometimes not, then marched out in a line and slotted into the bleachers to sit under the blazing sun, and on one occasion, blissfully, in a cool drizzle. We reeked of wet clothing that night, but less of ourselves. Hour by hour we watched vans arrive, discharge their quota of women, depart empty, the same wailings from the new arrivals, the same barking and shouts from the guards. How tedious is a tyranny in the throes of enactment. It's always the same plot. Lunch was the sandwiches again, and on one day, the drizzle day, some carrot sticks. Nothing like a balanced meal, said Anita. We had contrived to sit next to each other most days, and to sleep in proximity. She had not been a personal friend before this time, merely a professional colleague. But it gave me comfort simply to be with someone I knew, someone who personified my previous achievements, my previous life. You might say, we bonded. You were a damn fine judge, she whispered to me one day, on the third day. Thank you, so were you, I whispered back. Were was chilling. So, this is done a lot the way that they did on the show, except they switched them from judges and lawyers to teachers. So they were like, you were a damn fine teacher. Thank you, so were you. So same lines, just different line of work, but of the others in our section, I learned little. Their names sometimes. The names of their firms. Some firms had specialized in domestic work, divorces, child custody, and so forth. So if women were now the enemy, I could see why they might have been targeted. Excuse me. But being in real estate or litigation or estate law or corporate law appeared to offer no protection. All that was necessary was a law degree and a uterus. A lethal combination. The afternoons were chosen for the executions. The same parade out to the middle of the field with the blinded, condemned ones. I noticed more details as time went on. How some could hardly walk. How some seemed barely conscious. What had been happening to them? And why had they been selected to die? The same man in a black uniform exhorting into a microphone, God will prevail. Then the shouts, the toppling, the limp bodies, then the cleanup. There was a truck for the corpses. Were they buried? Were they burned? Or was that too much trouble? Perhaps they were simply taken to a dump site and left for crows. On the fourth day, there was a variation. 3 of the shooters were women. They weren't in business suits, but in long brown garments like bathrobes, with scarves tied under their chins. They got our attention. "Monsters," I whispered to Anita. "How could they?" she whispered back. "How could they?" she whispered back. On the 5th day, there were 6 women in brown among the shooters. There was also an uproar as one of them, instead of aiming at the blindfolded ones, pivoted and shot one of the men in black uniforms. She was immediately bludgeoned to the ground and riddled with bullets. There was a collective gasp from the bleachers. So, I thought, that's one way out. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I get that what they're going through, it is disgusting, it is horrible, it's horrific. Like, nobody's gonna go through something like this and not show possibly some of their worst fucking characteristics. And maybe their best. But just the way that the way that Lydia talks throughout this, it shows a significant amount of arrogance and narcissism and a certain way of thinking and acting and being, and how she is so quickly able to just shift from one type of person, one role to another, and completely, like, seemingly justify things. And yes, some of it is to try to keep these women safe in a way that she regards as safe, but still. Anyway, let's see, where was I? Did I read that part already? Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, so during the days, new women would be added to our group of lawyers and judges. It stayed the same size. However, since every night some were removed, they left singly between 2 guards. We did not know where they were being taken or why. None came back. On the 6th night, Anita was spirited away. It happened very quietly. Sometimes the targeted ones would shout and resist, but Anita did not, and I am ashamed to say that I was asleep when she was deleted. I woke up when the morning siren went off, and she was simply not there. "I'm sorry about your friend," one kind soul whispered to me as we stood in line for the pullulating toilets. Pullulating? That. I'm going to just say polluting toilets. For the polluting toilets. "I'm sorry too," I whispered back. But I was already hardening myself for what was almost surely to come. And definitely I would be hardening myself in this situation if I decided that I was willing to try to live through it. But just the way she is, it definitely bugs me. Because, like, even June talks specifically about how she had to harden herself, how she had to disconnect herself, steel herself, all of that. But, like, a lot of that was not spoken in such a freaking divisive manner. Anyway, I keep getting off. I'm just like, I can't, with fucking Aunt Lydia, like, she can be such a horrendous person. "I'm sorry too," I whispered back, but I was already hardening myself for what was almost surely to come. Sorry solves nothing, I told myself. Over the years, The many years. How true I have found that to be. On the seventh night, it was me. Anita had been noiselessly abstracted. That silence had had a demoralizing effect all its own. Since one could vanish, it seemed, with nobody noticing, and not even a ripple of sound. But it was not intended that I should go quietly. I was wakened by a boot applied to the hip. "Shut up and get up," said one of the barking voices. Before I was properly awake, I was being yanked upright and set in motion. All around there were murmurs, and one voice said no, and another said fuck, and another said God bless, and another said cuidate mucho. "I can walk by myself," I said, but this made no difference to the hands on my upper arms, one or either side. This is it, I thought. They're going to shoot me. But no, I corrected myself. "That's an afternoon thing, idiot," I countered. "Shooting can happen anywhere at any time and any way. Shooting is not the only method." All this time I was quiet, calm, which seems hard to believe, and in fact I no longer believe it. I was not quiet and calm. I was dead calm. As long as I thought of myself as already dead, untroubled by future cares, things would go easier for me. I was steered through the corridors, then out of a back entrance and into a car. It was not a van this time, but a Volvo. The back seat upholstery was soft but firm. The air conditioning was like a breath of paradise. Unfortunately, the freshness of the air reminded me of my own accumulated odors. Nevertheless, I relished the luxury, despite the fact that I was squashed in between two guards, both of them bulky. Neither said anything. I was simply a bundle to be transported. The car stopped outside a police station. It was no longer a police station, however. The lettering had been covered over, and on the front door there was an image, an eye with wings, the logo of the eyes, though I did not know that yet. Up the front steps we went, my two companions sturting me, stumbling. My feet hurt. I realized how out of practice they had become, and also how wrecked and filthy my shoes were. After the drenching, the baking, and the various substances to which they had been subjected, we went along the corridor. Baritone rumblings came from behind doors. Men in outfits like the ones beside me hurried past, their eyes gleaming with purpose, their voices staccato. There's something spine-stiffening about uniforms, about insignia, about shiny lapel pins. No slouchers here. We turned into one of the rooms. There, behind a large desk, sat a man who looked faintly like Santa Claus. Plump, white beard, rosy cheeks, cherry nose. He beamed at me. "You may sit down," he said. "Thank you," I replied. Not that I had a choice. My two travel buddies were inserting me into a chair and attaching me to it with plastic straps, arms to arms. And then they left the room, closing the door softly behind them. I had the impression that they went out backwards, as if in the presence of some ancient god king, but I couldn't see behind me. "I should introduce myself," he said. "I am Commander Judd of the Sons of Jacob." This was our first meeting. "I suppose you know who I am," I replied. "That is correct," he said, smiling blandly. I apologize for inconveniences you have been exposed to. Sure, you apologize. What a bunch of fucking loaded bullshit. Oh my god, these people. I apologize for your inconveniences. That's what this is. Inconveniences. It was nothing, I said straight-faced. It's foolish to joke with those who have absolute control over you. They don't like it. They think you don't appreciate the full extent of their power. Now that I have power myself, I do not encourage flippancy among subordinates. But I was careless back then. I have learned better. His smile vanished. Are you thankful to be alive? He said. Well, yes, I said. Are you thankful that God made you in a woman's body? I suppose so, I said. I've never thought about it. I'm not sure you are thankful enough, he said. What would thankful enough be like? I said. Thankful enough to cooperate with us, he said. Have I mentioned that he had little oblong half-glasses? He took these off now and contemplated them. His eyes, without the glasses, were less twinkly. What do you mean by cooperate? I said. It's a yes or a no. I was trained as a lawyer, I said. I'm a judge. I don't sign blank contracts. You are not a judge, he said, anymore. He pressed a button on an intercom. Thank tank, he said. Then to me, let us hope you will learn to be more thankful. I will pray for that result. And that is how I found myself in the thank tank. It was a repurposed police station isolation cell, approximately 4 paces by 4. It had a bed shelf, though there was no mattress. It had a bucket, which I swiftly concluded was for human food byproducts, as there were still some of those in it, as witnessed by the smell. It had once had a light, but no more. Now it had only a socket, and this was not live. Of course, I stuck my finger into it after a while. You would have to. You would have to? Okay. Any light I had would come from the corridor outside, though through the slot by which the inevitable sandwiches would shortly arrive. Gnawing in the dark, that was the plan for me. I groped around in the dusk, found the bed slab, sat down on it. I can do this, I thought. I can get through. I was right, but only just. You'd be surprised how quickly the mind goes soggy in the absence of other people. One person alone is not a full person. We exist in relation to others. I was one person. I risked becoming no person. I was in the think tank for some time. I don't know how long. Every once in a while an eye would view me through the sliding shutter that was there for viewing purposes. Every once in a while there would be a scream or a series of shrieks from nearby. Brutalization on parade. Sometimes there would be a prolonged moaning, sometimes a series of grunts and breathy grasps that sounded sexual and probably were. The powerless are so tempting. I had no way of knowing whether or not these noises were real or merely recordings, intended to shatter my nerves or wear away my resolve. I thought she was going to say I had no way of knowing whether they were real or like imagined in my head. But, okay. Whatever my resolve might be, after some days, I lost track of that plot line. The plot line of my resolve. I was parked inside my twilt cell for an unknown length of time, but it couldn't really have been that long, judging from the length of my fingernails when I was brought out of it. Time, however, is different when you're shut up in the dark alone. It's longer, nor do you know when you're asleep and when you're awake. Were these insects? Yes, there were insects. They did not bite me, so I expect they were cockroaches. I could feel their tiny feet tiptoeing across my face, tenderly, tentatively, as if my skin were thin ice. I did not slap them. After a while, you welcome any kind of touch. One day, if it was a day, 3 men came into my cell without warning, shone a glaring light into my blinking, purblind eyes, threw me onto the floor and administered a precise kicking and other attentions. The noises I emitted were familiar to me. I had heard them nearby. I won't go into any further details, except to say that tasers were also involved. So, again, like a lot of this, just like, think of the shit that they put the Handmaid's Tale through, or the handmaids through. The shit when they were torturing them, when they were trying to get them to answer questions, when they were interrogating them. The times that June had been put in fucking isolation. Like, she freaking, like, they used this shit. And she used it too. No, I was not raped. I suppose I was already too old and tough for that purpose. Or it may be that they were priding themselves on their high moral standards, but I doubt this very much. This kicking and tasing procedure was repeated 2 more times. 3 is a magic number. Did I weep? Yes. Tears came out of my 2 visible eyes, my moist, weeping human eyes. But I had a 3rd eye. In the middle of my forehead, I could feel it. It was cold like a stone. It did not weep. It saw, and behind it someone was thinking, I will get you back for this. I don't care how long it takes or how much shit I have to eat in the meantime, but I will do it. Now that sentiment I definitely can relate to. Anybody that goes through something like this, I could definitely relate to them feeling that way, and I could definitely relate to them using that feeling to drive them forward. But the stuff that I've talked about with Lydia's narcissism and arrogance is not that. This is something else. This is survival technique. This is a way that people get through the toughest, most awful, horrible shit, and they drive themselves forward and get past. Lydia just has a certain type of arrogance that is different than it is not just that. It is not just survival. Then, after an indefinite period without warning, the door to my think tank cell clanged open. Light flooded in, and 2 black uniforms hauled me out. No words were spoken. I, by this time a shambling wreck, and even smellier than before, was marched or dragged down the corridor by which I had arrived, and out the front door by which I had entered, and into an air-conditioned van. Next thing I knew, I was in a hotel. Yes, a hotel. It was not one of the grand hotels, more like a Holiday Inn, if that name will mean anything to you. Though I suppose it will not. Where are the brands of yesteryear? Gone with the wind? Or rather, gone with the paintbrush and the demolition team? Because as I was being hauled into the lobby, there were workmen overhead obliterating the lettering. In the lobby, there was no sweetly smiling reception staff to welcome me. Instead, there was a man with a list. A conversation took place between him and my two tour guides. Tour guides. And I was propelled into an elevator, then along a carpeted corridor that was only beginning to show signs of an absence of maids. A couple more months and they'll have a serious mildew issue, I thought with my mushy brain as a door was carted open. "Enjoy your stay," said one of my minders. I don't believe he was being ironic. 3 days R&R, said the second one. "Anything you need, phone the front desk." The door locked behind them. On the small table, there was a tray with orange juice and a banana, and a green salad, and a serving of poached salmon, a bed with sheets, several towels, more or less white, a shower. Above all, a beautiful ceramic toilet. I fell to my knees and uttered, yes, a heartfelt prayer. But to whom or what I could not tell you. After I'd eaten all the food, I didn't care if it was poison. I was so overjoyed by it. I spent the next few hours taking showers. Just one shower was not enough. There were so many layers of accumulated grime that I had to wash off. I inspected my healing abrasions, my yellowing and purpling bruises. I'd lost weight. I could see my ribs, which had reappeared after a decades-long absence due to fast food lunches. During my legal career, my body had been merely a vehicle for propelling me from one achievement to the next. But now I had a newfound tenderness for it. How pink were my toenails. How intricate the vein patterns on my hands. I could not get a good fix on my face in the bathroom mirror, however. Who was that person? The features seemed blurred. Excuse me. Then I slept for a long time. When I woke up, there was another delicious meal. Beef stroganoff with a side of asparagus and peach melba for dessert. And oh joy, a cup of coffee. I would have liked a martini, but I guess that alcohol was not going to be on the women's menu in this new era. My stinking former clothes had been removed by unseen hands. It seemed I was live in the white terry cloth. It seemed I was to live in the white terry cloth hotel bathrobe. I was still in a state of mental disarray. I was a jigsaw puzzle thrown onto the floor. But on the third morning, or was it an afternoon, I woke in an improved state of coherence. It seemed I could think again. It seemed I could think the word I. In addition to that, as if in acknowledgement of it, there was a fresh garment laid out for me. It was not quite a cowl, and it was not quite made of brown sackcloth, but close. I had seen it before in the stadium worn by the female shooters, and I felt a chill. I put it on. What else should I have done? Oh, we're done with that chapter. Okay, so that's it for today for the reading. Let's go to the live scene. Yeah, and I guess I'm being kind of hard on Lydia. It is definitely something that I noticed back when I was reading this, and I've noticed from her attitude in the TV series and all of it, like, just does seem to have a bit of arrogance and narcissism, and you could definitely hear by the things that they put her through that this is used by both the guardians, the eyes, and the ants. These torture techniques are used by all of them to try to get the fucking compliance that they want, to try to get the answers and information that they want from people throughout the TV series, throughout the book, over and over and over again. Stuff like this, just repeated. And I don't know, like, part of you thinks, or part of me thinks, wouldn't they learn from that, feel bad from that, not want to put somebody else through that? But it also shows them, hey, like, they put me through this, and this is what I experienced. This is how I reacted to it. This is what ended up happening. So they know, based on their own experiences, that other women are likely to handle things in that way also. And plus, she knows from the experiences of others that were around her that went through that. And because they're trying to survive in this freaking horrible, dystopic freaking reality, that she knows that they're not going to survive in if they don't basically do what they're told and play along and all of that. Her which we haven't come to it yet on the book, but in the TV series they've at least addressed the reality that Aunt Lydia is actually the person that creates the idea for the ants. That she's the one that brings up this idea of, like, if you are going to try to create these separate spheres for women and men, don't you think that it would be a good idea that you have somebody that could freaking handle all of the issues that are going to happen with women and get them to be trained up, to be raised up, to be the godly women that you want? So yeah, she definitely uses that, and we'll see that later on in the book. It just isn't there yet. We haven't gotten there yet. Let me see if I could think of anything else. I know people were addressing the fact that Judd is much younger on the TV series than he is on here. I don't care about that. I care more about them trying to play him off like he's some fucking sympathetic character. That irritates me. But I still get that same feeling that I got from that last guy that was with Serena. That it's this veneer, this, oh, I'm this like holier than thou polished guy or whatever, with these upright morality or whatever. Not necessarily that it's a show, but that it actually speaks to something more insidious and deeply deprived within these people. They think they are better. They think they are more moral. They think they are more proper. And they might just be the most evil and most horrid of the people in Gilead. That's how I feel about him. That's how I felt about the guy that Serena had married at the end of A Handmaid's Tale. Is like, they are coming across as these polished moral people, and that they really think they are. They really think they are proper and moral and fit and all of this stuff. So it's not just a show. It's not just icing or whatever to cover over their fucking faults. It's like they really believe this. They really think it's so. And underneath all that, it makes for an even more evil and disgusting person. To me. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm feeling. Don't know if that's how it's going to go. I hope so. I don't like this trying to make this guy look sympathetic. Not very much. As long as they keep the creepiness in, That works. The problem is that some of what they've been showing on the last episode did not have that creepy tinge, which kind of pissed me off because I'm like, you're not going to sit here and try to act like this guy is a good guy. He's fucking part of what created this. He ain't a good guy. And I know Lawrence fucking created shit too, but I always felt like Lawrence's part in it was one of somebody trying to approach things differently and trying to keep himself detached from Gilead, even though he was in the middle of it, which is still a problem. It's still very, very wrong. It's still very, very evil. But, like, I don't know. It feels different than these people that are, like, in the middle of it, creating it and, like, participating in the fucking torture and the other shit as much as they are. Anyway, I should probably stop. I need to go on about my day and get some other things taken care of this weekend. That's all I got for you today. I will see you when I see you. Bye.